Hey industry professionals, my name is Matt Richards with BZBGEAR, and today we're going to be doing another webinar. This week's webinar, we're going to be focusing on live streaming and what you might need in order to do that and what we can offer in order to get you there. So let's go ahead and hop into this. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a quick refresher on who I am. My name is Matt Richards. I am the marketing and video production lead for BZBGEAR, and I graduated from Liberty University back in 2019. I got my degree in Bachelor's of Science in Digital Media and Video Production, so that was a really cool industry to kind of get my hands in. So my marketing, or my background really is going to be broadcasting. It was the first job that I had coming out of college, was working at a news station and a TV station. So that's my background. I joined BZBGEAR in 2020, and now I'm really excited to talk to you guys about some of the new products that we're bringing to market, and kind of the things that I help them with in terms of, you know, how to be a little bit more broadcast focused or even AV focused. So what are the objectives of today's webinar? Well, we need to do a few things. We need to settle some groundwork before we actually get into what live streaming is. So we're going to talk about what's needed for a live stream, what the current equipment that your space might be looking like, what you might need for that space. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about how to go through the process of what to pick for said space. So let's go ahead and get into our live streaming solutions by BZBGEAR. All right, so why live stream in general? I know some of you guys who are industry professionals might know a lot of this, but just bear with me. Just want to get through this real quick. Simply put, it just really allows you to get a real-time connection with your audience over the internet. And it is an avenue for you to deliver high quality content at a relatively low cost, low investment, and it's extremely useful in tons of different fields like education, music, behind the scenes content, etc., etc. So what exactly do you need to start live streaming? The first thing first is going to be a robust network. So what I mean by that is we're looking at probably about at least 1 gig LAN, with a PoE network switch. That's going to help you out a lot. PoE is just a fantastic technology. It cuts down on all the wiring you need. It's not necessary to have a PoE LAN switch, but we would recommend it. Next, you're going to need a camera that's capable of connecting to a computer or the network. Either one works. Computers just, you can either connect USB, capture card, etc., or you could just do it through the network through NDI or Dante. One really good thing to incorporate is obviously going to be a microphone. This is really going to depend on your setup and how in-depth you want to go. So typically, if you're talking about a PTZ camera, if you want to run through everything through that, you can just go with a 3.5 millimeter jack into the camera, or you can connect directly to your computer with USB, or if you really wanted to get fancy, maybe SLR. Finally, the last thing that you're really going to need for this equation is going to be a computer. What I would really recommend that you look into for a computer is going to be something that has strong multi-threaded performance. So some of the newer AMD Ryzen chips are great for that, or any Intel chip. The big thing that you really want to make sure that your chip is going to handle, specifically the processor, is going to be able to either do some of the encoding work, or you have a graphics card that can also support a lot of the encoding work. You typically don't want one to do one aspect, either the CPU or the GPU to do both. So you're really going to be looking for something that has encoding capability. Finally, there's going to be some extra items that you can add to the list, like lighting. Lighting, obviously, really great. Helps you look pretty nice. Multiple cameras, physical switchers for directing or running the show outside of software, or capture cards to convert existing cameras into stream-capable cameras. So those are all things that you just really want to think about when you're doing this. So now that we know what we need, that doesn't necessarily answer the question of what you need. That's kind of the fun part. That's a little bit more abstract. We need to establish what the goal of the live stream is, the audience, and more importantly, what the setup is supposed to look like. Very, very dependent on the content being produced. For example, a house of worship is going to look very different from education, or a TV studio will look a lot more different than education as well. So let's go ahead and get into the factors to consider. Size of the room and the amount of talent that you're going to have on screen. Small room and small amount of talent, that means you're probably not going to need a whole lot of cameras because one, you're just limited on space, and two, You don't need 5 different angles for one person. What the content is going to be is also going to drive what your setup looks like. For example, in a more education-based setting, you might be able to get away with 2 cameras, one for the teacher, and then one maybe overhead or just a more wide angle to show like the board or something that they're working on. Just those are the things that you need to consider when you're talking about the content that's going to be on screen. Finally, the complexity of the show. So if you are a larger house of worship, for example, typically if you're doing live streams, your complexity is going to get a lot, like way more complex, basically. So the more complex you want it, generally the more cameras you're going to want to introduce into the system and the more equipment, because that means you're going to have greater control, more angles, all of that stuff. So now that we've kind of established all of that, let's go ahead and talk about how BZBGEAR can provide a solution to you. We can have you covered for pretty much almost everything you need. We have everything from cameras, capture cards, converters, joystick controllers, all-in-one solutions. For example, our Cyclops that has a camera, microphone, speakers, and as well as streaming encoders. We have those kind of all-in-one units, which are really cool. We'll talk about those in a minute. And then on top of that, we can also get you settled with cables and extensions. We're not going to talk about the cables or the extensions or extenders, but just know we have a whole lot of this stuff on hand. We have a lot of stuff to go through, so unfortunately we're really going to be focusing mostly on cameras, capture cards, joystick controllers, and some streaming encoders. Those are going to be our big focus today. So let's go ahead and start with BZB cameras. Some of the things that we offer in our cameras are going to be Dante AVH, NDI, and SDI USB or HDMI connectivity. A lot of our cameras that have Dante AVH or NDI capability, they're going to have SDI USB and HDMI. Some of our cameras are just going to be SDI or USB, but just know a lot of our cameras have tons of options for you, so pretty cool stuff. So we'll go ahead and start with kind of what I would say is our entry level for someone who has basically nothing for streaming. The BG Nucleus 10X. So this is a Windows PC and a 10X PTZ camera all in one box. So essentially you're getting a 1080p PTZ camera with 10X optical zoom, an Intel i5 CPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabyte M.2 SSD for those blazing fast speeds. M.2s are fantastic, especially if you want to do some recording and editing on the same rig. Granted, 512 gigabytes doesn't go as far as it used to, but that means you're going to have a lot of speed. It's going to be really efficient when you're editing. This thing is extremely compact, and you have plenty of input and output on it. USB inputs, you got Bluetooth, you have your LAN port, 3.5 millimeter audio line and mic input. So where I would say this really fits into our lineup is going to be educators, small houses of worship, or any kind of use case where space is really going to be an issue and you don't already have a computer. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and talk about our BG Packshot C10X. So this is a 1080p, basically it's a box camera with 10X optical zoom. It's a USB 3.0 and HDMI outputs. You can swap between landscape and portrait mode easily. It's just basically a touch of a button on the back. And it has 2 integrated stereo microphones. So where this really shines is maybe esports. This is kind of a really cool solution because you can put it up behind the monitor in front of somebody or in hobbyist uses. So let's say you want to, let's say you have a woodworking channel, for example, right? You can have your shots that are going to show the overall of what's happening, and then you can hang this guy above you and kind of have a top-down look, and that's where that would really shine. So anything where you need razor-sharp focus on a close-up, so it's great for education, hobbyists, pretty much anything along those lines. The next camera that we're going to talk about today is going to be the B20 SHA. This is another box camera. It's available in 20x or 30x zoom. This only goes to 1080p. Very, very compact, very similar to kind of the Packshot. It's just you get a little bit more zoom out of it. You also have the ability to zoom and focus through buttons on the back of it, and it also will allow you to stream direct through our web interface for it. That's kind of one of the really great things about it. And you get a lot of control options with this. You get a lot of output options as well, but you get 3G SDI, HDMI, a 3.5mm audio jack with PoE, and you're also getting RS-482 and 232 control functions out of it. Now, we're going to move into something that's a little bit more specialty, but where this really shines is going to be our education or fitness industry. This is the BG Maestro. It is a 1080p wide-angle auto-tracking ePTZ. Super easy to set up. We have some fantastic videos on it. You can also stream direct through our web interface as well. You have it available in two models. You have our SDI or HDMI model, and it goes with a 3x digital zoom, and you're getting 1080p up to 30 hertz. So, like I said, something like a studio, like a fitness studio, where you need to stream, would be a fantastic option. Moving on, we also have our, we're now going to get into our actual like PTZ options, and we're going to start it off with the BG BPTZ. This is our very entry model BG PTZ camera, and it's 1080p at 30 hertz. It's available in a 3x or 10x zoom. You have USB 2.0 output, cascadable RS-232 and 45, supports Visca and Pelco. You have plenty of preset options. Really where we kind of see this used is just going to be education, where you're setting up presets with a remote. But it's a very, very small, compact option that fits well in a educator's room or in small huddle spaces. Continuing on from the BG BPTZ, we're going to go ahead and talk about the BG VPTZ HSU3. So this is going to be the step up. Again, this is kind of tying back to our nucleus. This is kind of where I would push most people to look into for a PTZ camera if they want to get in at an entry level. This is going to be our 1080p at 60 hertz option. You have 10, 20, or 30x optical zoom ranges that you can pick from. You also get this available in NDI models as well. So that's going to make your life a little bit easier if you just want to run a single cable, because that gives you the single cable install through NDI. As long as you have a PoE capable network switch. It has an all aluminum body and chassis. It's a very small form factor. You get audio embedding with the 3.5mm jack. You get main and sub streams capable of messing with that in the web interface, and all of the outputs are simultaneous. So that's SDI, HDMI, USB 3.0, and LAN if you have the NDI model. Taking a step up, you have the BG UPTZ. This, we're kind of looking to kind of replace this model with our brand new Adamo Jr. That's going to be happening over the next couple months. It's still in service though, so we're going to talk about it. This is our nicer 1080p model with 60 hertz, available in 12, 20, or 30x optical zoom, but we also offer a 10x digital zoom on top of that. It's available in NDI models as well. You get audio embedding, same main and substream functions as the previous model that we just talked about. PoE capable. Again, all of the outputs are simultaneous. That's SDI, HDMI, USB 3.0, and LAN if you're NDI. You also get IP, IR, and cascadable RS-232 and 485 control, as well as up to 255 preset positions through the included remote. Now, these are going to be our big boys. These are the ones that we're really pushing. We've gotten a lot of interest, and quite frankly, they've been our most recognized camera on the market in the last year for us. They've been fantastic. So we're going to be talking about the brand new addition to the lineup, the BG Adamo Jr. So you're getting 1080p, 60 hertz, 12x, 20, or 30x optical zooms, and it's available on NDI and Dante AVH models as well. So you have the option for Dante, which is fantastic for any venue that's already incorporating Dante into their audio setup. One of the big things with this camera, you get tally lights. So that's kind of more of a broadcasting thing, but it still really helps if you're talking AV. And you also get simultaneous output through SDI, HDMI, USB 3.0, 2.0, and of course IP streaming if NDI and Dante. One thing that I don't have on the slide here that's really important to mention is the fact that this has a micro SD card reader. So you also get the ability to record as well as, you know, output to all of those connections all at the same time. Really awesome. You have multiple forms of control, including RS-232, 422, the web interface, and the control app or our IR remote. This is starting at $14.99, fantastic deal. We're really excited about this one, lots and lots of buzz. But let's go ahead and talk about the big camera on the market for us, and that's the BGA Damo 4K. You know, we just got back from Infocom not too long ago, and I think at this point it's safe to say this is one of the highest award-winning cameras on the market. We are up to, I believe, 7 now awards with this thing. You're getting 4K 60 hertz. It's available in 12 or 25x zoom. Kind of all of the same things that we just talked about on the Adamo Junior. You're just getting it in 4K. 4K at 60 hertz, mind you. So at a starting price of $26.99, there's not a whole lot of competition on the market for a 4K PTZ camera that has this amount of features. Fantastic option, but what if you already have a camera or you're looking to add more than just some of our cameras to your lineup? Well, let's talk about the next item that I would really encourage you to look into for a streaming setup, and that's going to be joysticks. We offer a few models. Kind of our entry is going to be the BG Commander Junior. You know, our Commander has been a fantastic product for us. It's been very well received in the professional world. But we took everything that was good about the Commander Junior and we just basically shrunk it. So it's got an LED display to allow you to review settings, VSCA, UDP, Pelco DNP protocols, you know, all of the serial control that you would want out of it. You get plenty of preset options. You can control up to, I believe it's 5 cameras off of the input on it. You have dials to mess with exposure, the speed of the camera, all of that good stuff. It's a really great little model. Really where this shines is going to be small runoff rooms like a secondary house of worship room, or just a mobile unit where you need to actually have space as a considering factor. Moving on, we have our BG Commander Pro. This is going to be our our most capable joystick controller yet. PoE capable, has IP control, which is awesome. The biggest thing about this is that it has a 7-inch touchscreen that allows you to get improved control. You can handle pretty much all of the functions from this unit on the touchscreen. So if you want to mess with the color correction, if you want to mess with speed, if you just want to assign cameras through it, you can literally do almost everything that you want through the touchscreen. IP, VSCA, OnVIF, RS-422, 45, 232 serial control. One of the really cool things, plenty of preset support, up to 255 preset positions per camera. It has variable speed adjustment, HDMI projection, 3x3 video wall support, and one of the cool things is you can add up to 2,048 devices to it. So awesome joystick, beefed up joystick for the actual control, just everything that you could want, has all the dials, and on top of that, the touchscreen to get you there. And finally, we're going to talk about the tried and true, our BG Commander. So this is going to be the one that kind of, I wouldn't say started it all, but the one that definitely has the most relevance for us. It's a super robust construction, all metal, reinforced. The joystick that we have on it, we made sure was reinforced for serious use. It's PoE capable with IP control. It has an LCD display to allow you to review settings. Fortunately, not touchscreen like the Pro, but that's why we kind of came up with the Pro, because we wanted to expand on this model, because we said, hey, this is a great model. What can we do to make it better? Plenty of preset support. Like I said, 255 preset positions per camera, and you have up to 7 quick select camera buttons. So you can run 7 cameras through this quite easily, and it's a great joystick controller. So what is going to be the last thing that we talk about today as far as, well, actually, no, it's not the last thing. The second to last category that we're going to cover today, and that's going to be our capture devices. So we're going to go ahead and kind of talk about 2 different types of capture devices here. First is just going to be regular capture devices, and others that we have are going to be kind of encoders as well. So we'll start with the BGCap HA. It's a USB 3.0 1080p capture device. You can take resolutions up to 4K and capture it at 1080p at 60 Hertz. And it comes with an HDMI loop out and stereo audio. So that's going to start at 99 bucks. Moving on, we have the BGCHA. This is a USB 3.1 1080p capture device with scaler. It is TAA compliant and it supports any resolutions up to 1080p at 60 Hertz. And basically it's just standard HDMI source capture card, but it's HDCP compliant and TAA compliant. So that's going to be the big draw for that model there. Moving on, we have the BGC2HA. So what's different between this and the previous model? It's basically going to be the fact that it has a loop out. So you can capture the source and you can also loop it out. Other than that, pretty much identical. Moving on, we have the BGCSA. This is a USB 3.1 SDI capture device. So not only do we have HDMI, but we also offer SDI. It is also TAA compliant and supports any resolutions up to 1080p at 60 Hertz. Also has the ability to loop out the same source that you are capturing through SDI. Next, we have the BG4KCH. This is a 4K HDMI video capture card with scaler built in. It's a USB-C output, supports capture at up to 4K at 30 Hertz, and it will also allow you to scale up content, like lower resolution content, up to 1080p at 60 Hertz. Super low latency, only 3 to 4 milliseconds. That's fantastic, and it is also TAA compliant. Now, what do we have next? This is kind of our really cool stuff that we're getting into now. These are brand new products. It's our BG4KCHA. This is a 4K HDMI 2.1 capture box with scaler, loop out, and audio. And on top of that, you're getting HDR and SDR conversion. Pretty cool. USB-C output, so super fast connection there. You're also going to get capture at 4K at 60 Hertz with up to 4K at 60 Hertz with the captured output being 4K at 30 Hertz. And it is also a very low latency at 3 to 4 milliseconds. What's really cool about these models is you can also capture your audio separately, and you can balance the levels through the device as well. So super cool on that aspect. It's kind of taking a little bit of a audio board or a mixer and throwing that in with the capture card. Next, we have a very similar product. It's going to be the 4K 120 CHA. So the biggest difference between this one and the previous model is that you can capture up to 4K at 120 Hertz. So that's kind of more targeted towards probably the gaming audience. That's going to be where that really shines. But your output resolution is only going to be 4K at 30, and it is HDCP 2.3 and 1.4 compliant. Like I said, pretty much all the other same features as the previous model. So awesome new products. And finally, let's go ahead and talk about the BG12G CSA. This is a 12G SDI capture box with scaler, loop out, and audio control. Same USB-C output, same 4K at 60 Hertz, ability to capture up to that, with the output resolution being lowered to 4K at 30 Hertz. And you have HDMI and SDI loop out at up to 4K at 60. So pretty awesome. Same thing, you can upscale lower resolution content up to 1080p at 120 Hertz and super low latency. Finally, we're going to be talking about our encoder lineup. So these are our capture cards that also are encoders. So we'll start off with the BGSAVS, the BGSAVS. This is a 1080p H.264 and 265 audio and video streaming encoder. You're going to get direct streaming through this device through the web interface, and it allows you to add image overlays, dual stream encoding, supporting resolutions up to 1080p at 60 Hertz. So it's kind of like an all-in-one solution if you just want to take a camera and be able to plug your camera in and stream directly from the camera. Next, we have our BGHAVS, which is the same thing as the SAVS, except it's HDMI instead of SDI. Again, dual stream encoding, image overlay, and support up to 1080p at 60 Hertz. And finally, we'll talk about kind of our last thing that we kind of want to talk about here, and that's going to be our converters. We have plenty of them. I'm not going to go over each individual model just because it would take quite a while, but just know that we have plenty of options, whether that's going HDMI to SDI, SDI to HDMI, or to USB, etc. We have you covered on that aspect. One of the final things that we do need to cover here is going to be your software solutions. So there's a few out there. The two that I mainly recommend people look into is going to be vMix or OBS. So let's go ahead and start with vMix. This is a software that we have kind of a partnership with. vMix, with a qualified purchase of one of our PTZ cameras, we will go ahead and throw in a free year license for vMix. Some of the selling points for vMix, it's really, really easy to use, especially compared to OBS. It's not to say OBS is difficult to use. It's just a little bit harder from an outsider's perspective if you've never interacted with it or you don't have prior knowledge. But it has full NDI capabilities, robust audio mixer, plenty of video correction. So this is kind of the cool part: color correction, zoom, crop, deinterlacing, all of the good stuff. That's already built in. You also get simultaneous streaming to multiple platforms. That's kind of going to be the big one. It's a little bit harder to do that with some of the other platforms. And you also get virtual support for virtual camera support for applications like Zoom or Teams, anything like that. Moving on to OBS, it's completely free. So completely free and open source broadcasting software. It's a little bit harder to get into initially, but it has a very deep pool to pull from. And what I mean by that is because it's open source, pretty much almost anything you want to do with OBS can be done. You just need to find a plugin for it, and somebody's probably made it. And if they haven't, you could probably find somebody to develop it, or you could develop it yourself since it is an open source broadcasting solution. It has kind of almost same, it has very, very similar features to it as vMix does. So, virtual camera support for Zoom, audio mixer, basic studio functions. But if you really want it to be a little bit more advanced, you have to start looking into content out there in order to kind of understand how to work it and what plugins you need to use for it. So what does a setup for streaming look like? Generally, it can be as simple as taking the cameras, plugging it into a network switch, plugging that into your computer, running it through the network, and basically just discovering those in OBS or vMix and broadcasting from there. It could also be a little bit more complex. It all depends on the setup that you need for your client and what they want to do. So if they want more direct control, you're going to want to add in something like a joystick controller and maybe a few audio devices, etc. So on the screen there, we have some of our older cameras, the BGND30X, just plugged into a PoE network switcher connected to a joystick controller, and that's just connected to a laptop running vMix. In this scenario, we're also running audio from a separate device, like a mixer, into the desktop computer in order to kind of fulfill the audio needs there. So moving on, we have a few other options here. On the left, we have an example of an NDI setup. Basically, it's all just running through the network switch. Everything is networked through the network. That's a silly way to say it, but everything is being controlled through the network. PoE switch, you have your joystick controller set up to it. You have your audio going through one of our production switchers, which is also plugged into all three of the cameras, and that's giving us a program out that's going through a converter, and all of that is coming into the PC to do the streaming. And then on the right, we just have another example of a setup there. So like we said, it can be as complicated or simple as you want it to be. It really just depends on the use case. Moving on, what about audio? There are a few options here. You can choose to use the audio tools in the broadcasting software of your choice. And when I'm talking about audio, I really just mean the balancing of it. So you can choose to do that, or you can route all your audio through a physical mixer and bring that back into the software via USB. Alternatively, if you want to keep it digital and don't want to invest in more hardware, there are some more robust digital mixing softwares out there that are free that you can download. And if you really just want to keep it all basic, you can plug in your audio source into some of our cameras and just run it through the camera. I don't necessarily recommend that. One of the things that you can get when you do that can be a little bit of electrical interference that shows up in the audio signal, but it's all up to you and what you need. So in conclusion, that's going to kind of cover everything that we wanted to talk about in a general overview of our live streaming solutions. Just to reiterate, my name was Matt Richards. I'm the marketing and video production lead with BZB Gear. You can find my information here on the screen if you want to get in contact with me if you have some questions, or alternatively, we have our fantastic sales team. One of the great things about these guys is they work with dealers and distributors all the time to kind of get you guys situated on what your clients need, or they just deal with a lot of this stuff on a daily basis. So if you have questions about how some of this stuff works, they're also a great point of reference to jump into. So that's their contact information there. You have Chris Graham. He's going to handle kind of our Eastern Seaboard. You have Ilbron. He's a vice president of global sales. So if you're anything international, he's the guy to talk to. And then you have Matthew, who's going to handle our Western Seaboard and kind of the Midwest as well. He's also a great reference to talk to if you are international as well. You should talk to him too. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any other questions, go ahead and don't hesitate to contact us at info@bzbgear.com or our support. Our support is fantastic. They've won an award as well. Have to shout them out. But follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and we will see you guys in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye.